exactly. It's specifically for the connections he makes with students. That's what Mr. Burrow has written here. He is constantly in the hallways during passing periods and out at lunch talking or joking with kids. He frequently reminds us of how much he loves middle school kids specifically, which isn't easy for some, okay? Which I understand. The students love him and can often be seen giving him knuckles and while they're heading down the hall. He comes with a smile to work every day. In addition to this, he takes time to mentor specific students that are struggling, giving them advice on how to deal with conflicts, peers, or teachers. Bear River Middle School is lucky to have a custodian like Sean. So we as the Box Elder School District Board of Education would like to thank you, Sean, for your positive efforts and not only doing your job, but also helping others to feel welcomed, encouraged, and accepted at Bear River Middle School. So thank you, Sean. Thank you. And our next one was given to us by Todd Barrow, Assistant Principal at Bear River Middle School, and that is Tyrell Neal. Is Tyrell here? Okay, Tyrell, great. Tyrell is the Ed Tech Instructional Coach at Bear River Middle School. Tyrell goes above and beyond coaching teachers and providing professional development about educational technology. Tyrell attends every intervention team meeting we hold for every struggling student, offering unique ideas and thoughts that no one else thinks about. He helped implement our Bears of the Month celebration, editing hundreds of videos to celebrate the great things our students do. He puts together our video announcements each day and includes a positive message for our students and staff to see and talk about each day. We haven't asked him to do any of that, but he just does, and our school is better because of him. Thanks, Tyrell. And we as the Box Elder Board of Education would like to thank Tyrell for his positive efforts in helping and supporting students and teachers at Bear River Middle School. Your positive efforts are recognized and appreciated by many. Thank you, Tyrell. And we appreciate all 5 of you. We would like, as a Board of Education, if you would come up, we would all like to shake your hands because we just appreciate you so much for all you do. So please come up now and shake your hand. Don't be shy. Either way, it all works. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Great job, Dave.
Thanks, Wade. And thank you for being here. We are so grateful for the good work that you're doing. And I was just telling Superintendent this, but I love, Wade kind of took the initiative of this, of inviting people to nominate people. And I think it makes it very personal and real. And so we really see what's happening, and it's a pleasure to hear those nominations. And I appreciate those who are nominating and taking the time to recognize their colleagues, because we really, good things happening. So thank you. You're welcome to leave. You don't have to stay for the whole board meeting. So, yeah, you're sure, likely excuse. Thank you. Now we get to move to another exciting part of our program with our Walmart grant presentation. This is always a fun time when we appreciate our business partners and those that really contribute to our district. So we'll turn the time over to you for the presentation.
But it is honestly one of the great pleasures we have to be able to work those who support it. And our BESD product, all my kids are BESD product. And so I do want a little bit of patience as I read through this list. Awesome. So as I read through this list, if I mispronounce any names or misread anything, remember I am a BESD product. Right, principal?
Or no hair.
It is honestly a pleasure for us. One of the things that we look forward to each and every year. We get the grant presentation. Don usually receives that, and then we get to sit down and go through those and just decide which of those that we have the money to fund. And this is the list that we have come up with this year, the ones that we're going to fund. Since it's post-COVID, right, we would love for you guys to come up, be recognized. You can shake our hand, you can high five us, you can fist bump us, you can just smile, whatever it is, but we would like you guys to come up and be recognized when you come. So if you're here. Sorry.
We have multiple members of our team here tonight. So I'm gonna ask them to come up and just stand next to us. They too, a couple of them have come a couple of years now. Not very hard to convince our leaders to come out here to this presentation because like Clay and I think they've really grown to appreciate and really enjoy the time that we get to come and see you guys. So we'll turn some time over to them after the talk.
One thing before I get started, I did want to say, I was hoping to catch Sean before he walked out, but everything they said about Sean Noyes is true. He is awesome. So, okay, let's go ahead and start this thing. First, we have from Foxwood High School, John Zhang, for experimental learning with Chinese culture.
I'm representing John.
Next is Melanie Day for Look in Book Literacy Outreach.
Hey.
Let's see if the Bear River High School did any better than their representation. From BRHS, we have Teresa Ingram Cutler for CPR certification on anatomy.
I'm not Teresa, I'm Brickell, but I'm representing all of us.
And Brickell, let's give a hand for Brickell. And you representing Tiffany as well? All right, and Tiffany Burnholt for EMDR, trauma therapy, package. So thank you for therapy expert. From Sunrise, we do have Nancy Anderson. Nancy. Thank you. From Bruce Blanket. From BEMS, Sally Bailey.
Great.
And hers is for Adventures in Reading. And obviously you can see, you can't see, the amount we funded. It's not up there, but we did fund $350 for that program. From BRMS, Evelyn Forrest. All right. Are you also Casey?
Yep.
All right. Those were for hibernation and for flexible seating with inflexible depths. For 420 for hibernation and 530 for the flexible seating. Allison Harris, Eric Bywater.
I'm not her.
You have a lot of identity.
Okay, and that is for Skills 6 Sewing Project funded for $250. From Century, Misty Curtis. Thank you very much. Megan. Thank you very much. That's for reflex math fact fluency for $700. From Garland, Nicole Nelson. Yeah. So it is for iPads for helping first graders to read, and it is funded for $1,200. Finley, Ashley Bailey. Yay! For Storyworks by Scholastic for $225. From McKinley, we have Lana Zulander. Way to go. Counseling Library, helping students one book at a time for $275. From North Park, Paola Herrera. Paola is for germinating our science curiosity for $400. From Park Valley, we have Samantha Gahn and Melissa Morris. Samantha's is for art and classroom. And for $175, and Melissa's is Bringing Back America's and Park Valley's favorite pastime of baseball for $200. Last, from Willard, we have Brady Holder. Yay, Brady. And for Haley Kilmer, Organization for Little Learners for $175, and Haley is supporting families and early language learners for $11.50. For a total of $10,000.
Thank you, Mama.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure of ours. It is one of the fundraisers we love doing the most each year. When we get that list, Don and I are so excited to go through it. So it is definitely one of those things we enjoy. Go ahead, boy.
So since you got the call from Mr. Clark, I've worked in a little bit since the last years. I do have 2 kids as well. So I know that the money that we're able to give out comes in this program. A lot of that stuff. I also am a product of the BESD. I'm proud of it. I'm like, Clay.
I'm proud of it.
Pay attention. I have 4 kids also that have either graduated from Untitled or are still attending school. Pretty much they're still exploring now, just like Ryan said. We're thankful to be able to support the kids that are the ones that are really helping our kids be successful, and very thankful to you for that. We're glad that we're able to help support that.
I'd love to everyone with this. I have 2 kids, a family, and a family. Very grateful for the box for this.
That's wonderful. Just for the board members' information, I don't know if you looked at, but it was, the second page has all the dollar amounts and the specific information about that. So, that's always fun to see. And I know my kids have benefited from some of these programs, so I'm excited to see how they go this year. So, all right, superintendent has whatever, we are,
Okay, this year, I believe it's the first time they've done this. At least it's the first time I think that we've been awarded the Bear River Health Department, which includes Box Elder, Cache County, and Rich County, had a competition, and it was called Bike to Work Week. And it just so happens that Box Elder School District had enough people that turned in the miles that they rode to work that we were able to be the winners of the Bear River Health Department's Bike to Work Week, and it's the school district winner. There's a letter here. It says, thank you for participating in the Bear River Health Department's Bike to Work Week. The Box Elder School District has come out on top. We award you the Bear River Health Department School District winner for the 2022 Bike to Work Week event. We'd like to award this plaque to you as a way to show our appreciation. With this event, the Bear River Health Department hopes to increase awareness of the many benefits active transportation can provide. Box Elder School District has done a great job supporting this event and getting the word out to employees and students to encourage participation. Congratulations again to all who participated. We look forward to your participation next year. Sincerely, Natalie Tibbetts of the Bear River Health Department. So that's a cool thing, and we'll probably put it up somewhere on the wall here. Yeah. Okay. So
that's exciting.
Very cool.
I didn't know about
Yeah.
that. And considering we have a really large county,
It's a lot of
biking to work, I guess. Maybe we have the advantage, you have to go a longer way. All right, well, thank you. Okay, we are at the point where we need an approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion by Nancy Kennedy and a second by Connie Archibald to approve the agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay. There is no public comment, it looks like, so let's move on to the action items. So the first thing we have is our positive behavior plans for all of the schools, and board members, we looked at those. We each have things. Jackie, do you have anything you want to say about that? Good. Fantastic. Are there any questions from board members? I enjoyed looking. There's things I knew about and things I didn't know about, so it was kind of fun to see what's happening.
I'll make a motion that we accept and approve the plans, the behavior plans as presented.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Karen Cronin and a second by Tiffany Summers to approve the positive behavior plans as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Oh, I forgot. Are we supposed to do we have to say, Dave? We're supposed to do it individually now. Okay. Well, we all said aye. Just, I don't name now. Yeah. We'll have to pass. I just thought of that. I was like, oh, okay. That's a new law. Is that a new way that we have to vote? So I'll try to remember that when we do it. I'll say, starting with Nancy, please vote. Or whatever.
Nancy Kennedy, yes. And I do need to say, I thought these were all going to be just boilerplate with people just filling in. And it was so great to read those because everyone is so different and so specifically tied. I thought, oh yeah, they're just all going to say, and they were great.
Wade Hyde, yes.
Julie Taylor, yes.
Tiffany Summers, yes.
Connie Archibald, yes.
Karen Cronin, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, approval of internal auditor. Dave, you want to?
We have had this position vacant for 7 months. We put it out when we first got notice that the previous internal auditor was terminating his contract. We put it out to bid. We had nobody submit a bid for our internal auditor. So we did a little bit of digging and we called out to, I want to say between the previous business administrator, Rod Cook, and I, we probably reached out to about 15 individuals that are in the finance accounting arena, including some companies here in Brigham City. None of them responded to our RFP. So the only person that responded, and they responded after they retired, was our former business administrator. So the recommendation is based off of his experience, and his costs are right in line with what our previous internal auditor was charging. I would, recommend that we accept Rod Cook as our internal auditor for Box Elder School District beginning November 1st.
President, I'll make a motion that we appoint Mr. Rod Cook as our internal auditor for the Box Elder School District.
I second that.
So we have a motion by Connie Archibald and a second by Wade Hyde to accept Rod Cook as our internal auditor. Nancy?
Wade Hyde, yes?
Julie Taylor, yes?
Tiffany Summers, yes.
Connie Archibald, yes.
Karen Cronin, yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you, and thanks for all the hard work of getting someone. That's a we need that, and it's, wow, I'm glad. And we know and trust Rod, so I think that's a good fit for us too. Okay, and I think you're the next item as well, the approval of surplus of Mountain View Elementary.
So in last board meeting, we had Corey Thompson, who's the facilities director, come and make his recommendation. And basically that recommendation is that we surplus Mountain View Elementary School because we don't see a need to hold on to that property, but hold on to Foothill Elementary because of the growth that is happening in that northwest corner. We have pretty much taken out most of the inventory that's out of that school. The Brigham City has started their lease with us in regards to using that facility for their Meals on Wheels and Senior Center. And just having the opportunity to have someone there would help keep the facility in good condition while we're surplusing it. I will tell you that we have received 3 quotes for appraisal on that property to find out what the market value is. And then also too, I am working with a couple BAs in trying to figure out how they sold their surplus property in the past. We have made contact with a law firm that we are contracted with. That individual emailed me today and told me that she has not been able to find certain language that I know that we have talked about in our process to surplus this property. So I'll let you guys know of that. But I'm pretty confident we can have the appraisal done within 3 weeks, according to the quotes that were submitted.
Thank you. Any questions from board?
Make-
Later, excuse me, Karen, but later in this meeting, we're going to talk about a work session and try to schedule that, and we'll be able to have more information at that work session, have a little deeper discussion during that time.
Okay, thank you.
I make a motion that we declare the Mountain View Elementary as surplus property.
That motion?
Okay, so we have a motion by Karen Cronin and a second by Nancy Kennedy to declare Mountain View Elementary as surplus property. Nancy?
Wade Hyde, yes?
Julie Taylor, yes?
Tiffany Summers, yes. Karen Cronin, yes.
Okay, so that motion passes and we'll look forward to getting more information of that as it comes. Thank you for your work on that. Okay, Keith, amendment approval or amendment to school fees.
Notified during the summer that the HOSA, which is a curricular club, the state fees increased. And with the state fees increasing, it made their maximum, they would go over that. So they're requesting to move it from 100 to 170. In terms of who's going to be affected by this, they would have to do 3 things. They'd have to be in the leadership of the club, they would have to buy a jacket, and they would have to qualify for state. So if you weren't, any one of those wouldn't put you over the 100, but if you do all 3, it would put you over the 100. So they're asking 170.
So Keith, because this is a statewide, This applies to both Bear River and Box
Yeah,
Elder.
if anybody is can host it.
Good question. Any other questions?
I was just gonna ask a question on the jacket. Are those covered by fees?
Well, because we could charge them, we have to put it in the fee schedule.
I just heard that some, like Letterman jackets aren't covered, so I just was wondering how this works.
It's a good question, Karen. Letterman's are different because no one says these are for hostess club. So you have to buy one if you want to, and so that's part of the fee. You don't have to buy it, but if you were to buy the jacket and you would rate it 100.
No, but like Letterman jackets, they don't have
But the Letterman jacket's not associated with any particular club or sport. It's just, if you want to go buy one, you can buy one.
Is it
So
like the
I-
student body officers?
It's like a student body officers have a student body jacket.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm
Well,
part of
this is like the
basketball
FFA
team.
jacket.
Yeah, it's an FFA
You have to
jacket.
have it specifically for that club
Yeah.
to compete in any kind of statewide or
So
national
this would be like,
competitions.
this is specific
Okay.
to the club. And if you buy one as a freshman, you're not gonna buy it as a junior, so it's kind of a one-time cost. So, but if all three of those things align, they would break the allotment, and that's why we're asking for the increase.
Yeah. So it's not gonna affect most, like my son
Most
joined hosted
will-
this year. I'm like,
Most
oh,
will not
he's,
ever go
Yeah.
above 100, but if we do all three. we would.
And then the other question, was the increase exactly paralleling what the state increase was? Like it was $70 increase, is that exactly
That's what-
mirror
Yeah.
what the state increase was?
any other
Again,
questions?
we're gonna have to recognize when we make fees a year in advance,
Things
we
can
really,
change.
it really is a guesstimate.
Yeah.
And so being high helps, but we don't want to be too high, but it will happen from time to time. So
Yeah.
we appreciate your support in this.
Okay, anybody have any other questions? Or
I-
motion?
I move that we approve the amendment of the 2022-23 student fees. Is this, I'm on the wrong one, no.
That's right.
General student fees and deposits scheduled for the HOSA Club from 100 to 170 maximum.
I will second that.
So we have a motion by Tiffany Summers and a second by Nancy Kennedy to approve the amendment to school fees for the HOSA Club for this coming school year.
Wade Hyde, yes.
Julie Taylor, yes?
Tiffany Summers, yes.
Karen Cronin, yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes. Can we just say yes really fast and you know it's all us instead of our name? Okay. Okay, so from now on, just say, we'll see how fast we can do it, like the wave, you know? Unless you have no, then obviously. Okay. All right, let's move on to our information items. We have Jeremy Young here to present to us on our school and district report cards. So thank you for coming, and we'll turn the time over to you.
Okay, so good. The state report cards were released yesterday for public view on the state website, Data Gateway. And so we had a training yesterday with administrators on what those are, and so that they could ask us or answer questions and help understand the accountability rules and how that all applies. And so it's kind of fitting or great timing, I should say, that that I'm going through it a little bit with you so that as constituents or stakeholders or other people approach you with questions, you will have some background information about those report cards. I'm going to give a little bit of background in how those scores and grades and things are generated so you can kind of understand where that's coming from, and then we'll dig into some district data and then a little bit about each school, and I can show you where you can access all of that more in depth. So all of this data, really the state report card has four components, 5 for the high schools. So it has achievement, which is based on 2 tests. For 3rd through 8th graders, it's based on RISE in math, science, and English language arts. For 9th and 10th graders, it's on the Utah Aspire Plus. which Utah Aspire Plus is a combination 50-50 of ACT's Aspire test and test questions that are specifically based on Utah standards. And so it's something unique to our state. It does come with a predictive ACT score, and we give that to all 9th and 10th graders in the state, but that's where those scores come from. And then growth is calculated by a student's growth percentile, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but it also comes from those assessments. A component is English learner progress and proficiency that's based on one single test that we take usually in February. It's called the WIDA access test that those students take. And then there's another component that schools get points for is the growth of the lowest 25%. And so that's based on how those students score the previous year and how they grow. And then for the high schools only, they have an additional component that's called post-secondary readiness that comes based on 11th grade ACT scores, the graduation rate, and the enrollment of students and passing with a C or better in AP, concurrent enrollment classes, and completing CTE pathways. Okay, and so we'll spend a little time in each one of those, but that's where all this comes from. And so with that, as you see a grade, so each school this year, and for the first time in many years, will get a grade. And so it's important to recognize that that grade is coming from a few small things. So there is much more to a school than a grade, but it is reflective in certain ways of certain things. And so it's good context. Yeah, I have some graphics for that too. It is. It is. It is, and we'll look at that a little bit. Here's how it breaks down percentage-wise for elementary and middle schools. So 37% of their points come from achievement and growth, and then 9% from English learners' progress and proficiency, and then 17 from the growth of the lowest 25%. That's how their grade or their score is where it comes from, and how it's weighted. High school is a little bit different. A third of theirs comes from that post-secondary readiness piece, with 11% for each of those three categories of graduation, ACT, and advanced coursework. And then the other categories shrink accordingly, and kind of proportionately. So as we look at, here's what Nancy was talking about with that, the percentage spread. And so as a school receives a percentage of the total possible points, they get a letter grade based on that percentage. And so when you see that letter grade, this is what it is. And so an A, I believe this is for elementaries. And so with the elementary and middle schools, 150 points possible. If you're at 63% of those points you've gathered or higher, you would have an A. And it kind of breaks down that way with 0 to 34, and then those middle windows are a little tighter for those grades. The C is a little bit bigger than the B and the D. So you can understand when you see an A, it's not a 90% like what we would typically understand that to be. For the high schools, it's spread a little bit bigger pieces. It's kind of skewed a little bit higher. So the 37 is your cutoff for an F to a D, and then your A is up at 64. But again, the windows in the middle are a little tighter. So as we look at these, and then 225 points. Also, at any time, if you have questions about any of this, please don't hesitate to ask those. So here's our district. So I'll take and go through each of those with a district look. So all of our data is broken out by the two assessments for achievement and growth. So K-8 in RISE, Utah Aspire Plus is 9 through 10. Or sorry, I should say 3-8 on RISE, because third graders and higher take RISE. But that's the way it shows up in the report is as K-8. But only third graders and higher take RISE. So for achievement, for the achievement score, pieces of that, those 56 points come a third into each category. So each content area gets 18 and 2/3 points. And then also an important thing to remember, only students that are enrolled in the school for 160 days count on this. And so as we have students move in and out of our district, they are not counted towards our school or our district's grades if they are not enrolled for 160 days. And so I've put in the top is what screenshots from our district report cards. So you can see the breakdown. There's a little gauge up in the top that says our kind of a comparison of those points that we get in that category. Typical, and it ranges up and down from commendable to below average type of a thing. And so you can kind of see where those are for each of those subtests, those content areas. And then below that, I've included the state averages. So for the most part, you can see we're pretty close, either a little bit above or a little bit below those state averages. The one exception, or really noticeable exception to that, would be our 9th and 10th grade English language arts, where we're 9% above the state average. And then in math on that same test, we were 4% below the state average. And you'll see something similar as we look at growth for that. But again, this is just that one assessment for those two grades. As we look at growth, growth also has the thirds applied to it. And so a third of the points on each content area. But starting this summer, all of the growth, these growth points come from what's called a student growth percentile. And I'll on our next slide, I'll kind of explain what that is or how that's calculated so you can kind of understand the growth component. Looking just really close, you can see even though the growth in each of those categories is considered average by what it says next to it, you'll notice in the top right that it's exemplary for our district in growth. And that's because compared to the state, we're really close on all of those components, but most districts as a whole don't have that high in all of their categories. And so we're exemplary before the total amount of growth points that we receive, even though each one is kind of really pretty close. Again, with the ELA a little higher, the math a little lower. Yes. No, it's just last year to this year. So it's the 2021 data to the 2022 data. Is that it's strictly calculating that in growth. Yes, in growth. And so this next, and so that third piece for growth is the growth of the lowest 25%. So you can see where we're at with those. Really pretty similar, a little higher on the rise, a little lower than the other categories on the Aspire Plus.
So quick, maybe you'll explain this, but on growth, is it tracking like this year's 9th graders versus last year's 9th graders, or it's individual student growth? They're
Yeah.
going to track that. Okay.
So here's how growth works.
Sorry.
It's better here. Okay, so as I read this, so the growth calculation compares like scoring peers statewide on the previous year's tests. For example, all third graders scoring a 322 in math are compared to students earning the same scale scores on this year's test. So if we took every kid in the state that scored a 322 in math, they are all gathered together in a group. And then we look at their scores on this next year's math test. And then based on how those come out, they are ranked 1 to 100 in percentiles, 1 to 99. And then anyone over a 40 is considered adequate. Anyone over a 65 is considered outstanding. But based on that percentile, we get an average student growth percentile that gets us a percentage of those points. There's a lot to it. but essentially, yeah. And that's really why, so like the Utah Aspire, the RISE data we've had since the end of school, And the Utah Aspire Plus data we've had since the middle of the summer, but it's taken this long for all of these accountability rules to be put in so that the SGP can be calculated, so points can be administered. Student scores who aren't enrolled in the district can be removed to get really the true picture of growth for each district. But that's kind of how that works for growth. And then it's the same type of thing for those who are moving from 8th to 9th grade. They're grouped based on how they scored on the 8th grade RISE test, but then they get an SGP, a student growth percentile, based on how they score this past year on Utah Aspire Plus, and are compared. So really they're compared against like scoring peers for growth.
So critical. Do we have people opting out of this test?
Yes, opt-outs do not count for or against us. You could, depending, well, I say that, in the calculations, they don't count for or against us. If the students opting out would be proficient, then you could say they are hurting the score. Or if they are opting out and they would not be proficient, you could say they're helping the score. It really depends on who it is that's opting out and how many of them are. For most schools, there's not a significant enough number of them to really affect that data much, but we had a couple schools with high opt-out numbers. And so some teachers have tried in creative ways to encourage them to and incentivize them to take the assessment and motivate them. We can't do anything non-academic to incentivize, and we can't do anything punitive that way for not taking the test. And so they've been creative and have had some success in some schools. An example is at Box Elder Middle School last year. The math department decided that they would have a final that would count towards their grade, and students can take the final. And they would have all students take the final. But if a student scored proficient on the RISE assessment, then they could opt out of the final and would get a passing grade on the final for passing the RISE assessment. And so, or if they took both, they could take the better of both scores. Or if they scored a 4 on the RISE, they could erase one or move up a letter grade from a previous trimester. So knowing that, hey, it is hard to score a 4 on this math assessment, if you're able to do that, it demonstrates to us a level of proficiency that we're okay to adjust a letter grade to accommodate that. And so those are academic ways to incentivize taking the test. And we actually had kids who had opted out, and once that came out, decided to opt back in and take the test. And so we've shared that with other schools, hoping to incentivize and give some reason to take the test and demonstrate proficiency and demonstrate, hey, we know how to do this, and we can prove it.
If I could just add right now, you've heard us talk, I'm talking to the board, about response to intervention, or our RTI model. And the reason that's in place is partly, well, mostly just because we want high levels of learning by all students. And when we have certain students that for some reason have missed out on learning in previous years for a variety of reasons, they could have been homeschooled, they could have had some sort of trauma in their home, one of their parents could have been ill. And so when we talk about RTI, it's a 3-tier system. The first response to intervention sounds kind of strange, but it actually is direct instruction. It's when the teacher gives the lesson. That's the first tier. The second tier of instruction is when a student didn't get it for some reason. They might have missed one day during that week, or there's some reason they just didn't get it, and that's a little less of an intervention where the teacher might, we heard about the intervention that happens in the middle school today. Hopefully that tier 2 intervention can get the kid caught up right now on a very short-term basis. The tier 3 intervention are students who have had that more severe learning loss. They have holes in their learning. And so therefore we have programs in place in all of our schools to be able to have students go and either go usually to the teachers and get help to help them catch up. And therefore, it helps us with this scoring a lot because that's usually the lowest, is it 25%? And that's, and we're doing that because it's the right thing to do to help all kids learn at high levels, but it also helps us with our school grading.
Yeah, and really, as those students make significant progress, they help in two ways. They help in the overall growth score, but then in the lowest 25% growth, their growth is counted twice, essentially. And so those efforts to help that group of students really impacts the grading. The third area is English learner progress, and so it's based on proficiency and adequate progress on the WIDA test. And so it counts the percentage of English learners who are either of those things. They either are proficient and they score out of being in the EL program, which is currently a 5 on the WIDA test. There's an application from the state to reduce that to a 4.8 and a 3 on the speaking subs test, which could help that a little bit. It's kind of a high bar that's set with a 5. Or they make adequate progress, and that progress is different for every student based on how long they've been in the program and what level of language they currently have. And so the expectation or the target that they're supposed to hit changes for everyone. You can see our K-8 and 9-12 English learner progress and proficiency. Our progress, so the comparisons below with the state are progress. The proficiency is really pretty small. So K-8, we had 3% of our EL students reach proficiency. That's what the state average is 3. Or actually it's 5, I think. For 9-12, we didn't have any students reach proficiency this year, which really, by the time you hit high school, is really hard for them to move out. The state average is 3%, and so we usually were around there. We didn't have anyone this year, but we did have significant progress. We had over half of our students reaching that progress goal, which is significantly above the state average there. So we're making progress there.
So are there any schools that have very low populations that, like, how does that affect the overall thing? Like, if I have only a handful of kids, and how does that affect the overall score? Is there like a
So it's
level?
taken as a district as a whole.
Okay.
And so each school, and we allocate our resources based on enrollment. And so schools that have a higher population get more classes, more EL English learning classes, more paras to help with groups and things like that. And so it's kind of representative
But on a
of
school,
that.
don't these grades
So
break down for
schools
school
get a
grades?
grade as well, but if they have less than 10, then it's
Okay.
considered you'll see an ND for no
Okay.
data on if you look at a school's grade, and under EL, if it has ND, it means there's not enough of those kids to have it be an accurate measure, or else you'll have 3 or 4 kids that are making up a huge percentage of your points
Right.
based on how they do. And so they just
Okay, that's what I
cut
was
that
wondering.
out of the calculation.
Thanks.
Yeah. And then the last component is post-secondary readiness for high schools. So to count for that, you have to have an 18 or higher on the composite score for the ACT. Those are our juniors. And then the graduation rate and the concurrent, the readiness coursework rate, those are all from a year ago. So that's our 2021 graduating seniors, is how that's calculated. So there's a year lag on that. And so you can look at where we're at there with typical for the amount of points that we gathered in that area. You can see our averages are pretty close to the state averages. We're a little bit lower on the graduation rate, but I think that will come up as we're clarifying some coding pieces that we're working with the schools and making sure that students that exit are coded correctly so that they don't count against us for certain reasons. So we're fixing that continually, but we're higher than the state average on readiness coursework and the ACT percentages. So here's where the school grades are, just quickly, so a quick view. Any school that's not on here didn't have a grade for various reasons. Sometimes it's population numbers. So our western schools you won't see on here because they don't have the number of schools. Or also the Sunrise is not on here, which the 160 days of enrollment really hurts them because they have very few students who are enrolled for that amount of time as they come and go and things like that. And so you can, I'm going to show you where to access these reports as well. And I can send you this as well. Yep. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So it's the same place. But there's a link on our district website as well. A couple of things to note. There's 3 schools that were really pretty close to getting an A. Box Elder High School, Fielding, and 3 Mile. We're all pretty close to bumping up to A's. Yeah. Yeah. So on the district website, the place you would find this or more information about it, if you go to the assessment website under district resources and accountability, there's links to the Utah Technical Manual. If you're really into those calculations, you want to see how all those percentages and things work out, you can, you're welcome to dig into that. There's an infographic that has those pie charts as well on there, and there's a link to the Utah school report cards where you can search by any district, any school in the state, and look at all this information for them. And then if you go to the data gateway on the state website, under accountability, it's the school report card, and that'll take you to the same place. Well, we haven't had grades in like 4 years. So this is the first year that we've had grades under this new system. Yeah, so we don't really have a comparison for the actual grades.
So is this data for our information and so we can help our students, or is there some kind of state level, if you get this grade, then X, Y, or Z happens, like if you're below or whatever?
The only thing that really is tied to this data is in the accountability for TSI and CSI schools. So TSI is turnaround schools and CSI is comprehensive schools for improvement. And that's if we have a school or a subgroup that scores in the lowest 5% in the state, then they have to write a plan about how they're going to address that and how they're going to meet those needs. We had some schools that were on TSI or CSI for different subgroups, and we're waiting for the middle of October, middle to end, they said, is when we should know if we have any schools with subgroups or schools as a whole. We don't have any schools as a whole that are there, but we might have some subgroups that are in that range. No. So like students with disabilities or an ethnicity group or English learners or, yep. And then they'll let us know of those.
Well, thank you. Are there any other questions from the board? That's good information. And Superintendent, I would like this presentation as well. I like the form, but
Yep.
Superintendent did send us a link to, and I took a look at it earlier today, and I thought it was interesting. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'll
That-
send this to
that's
send it on.
Quick turnaround time from yesterday for you to be ready
Yeah,
to present.
exactly.
I'm
No,
sorry that I didn't have this to you to look
No,
at beforehand.
that's-
That's
No, thank you.
Thanks. This is fabulous. Yeah.
there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jeremy.
Thank you. Good work. I like this. I like what soon it is kind of hard to see though, like it's one test that's giving us a lot of things and we know how education is. So I think it's good information and it's good data to have, but I also know that there's lots of points and data points that we can look at in our schools as well. But thank you for putting that together. I think it's very valuable. Okay, Jackie, trauma training. Thank you for being here.
You've got that for me, so we're just gonna go. So I'm not gonna give you the trauma training that we're doing this year, but I'm gonna give you an overview of what is happening in the schools. And if you ever want to join us for one, let me know, but I'll walk you through what's happening. You each should have a book, okay? So this year we're reviewing, we're reteaching, and we're renewing the resilience in our students and also in each other as adults, because it's been a traumatic couple of years for all of us. It's just been a very heavy load. So part of the reviewing is remembering back what we've learned. And this is our 4th year of trauma training. So it's kind of exciting to look back and see how far we've come, right? We started with adverse childhood experiences and what it does to the brain when these little guys have things happen and the developmental delays that go on, and it actually changes the brain. If you remember, Jamie Kent shared her story with us of the trauma that she experienced and how it impacted her significantly. And yet, because of people around her, she was able to rise above and go beyond. We talked about the prisoners in the Compassion Prison Project and how giving them value, even though they've made some decisions and done things that aren't good, they're valuable because they are human. And so giving them that. And so that's kind of what we've done over the past 3 years. This year, we are focusing our everything on being everyday strong and being resilient. And Josh Shipp, I don't know if you remember, we saw one of his videos on the very first year. He talks about the power of one. This is just to kind of refresh your memory in a little bit different way. And then we're going to dive into how we can help you.
As a kid, I mastered the art of getting kicked out of foster homes. And the fact of the matter is I trusted no one. And looking back, I guess, how could I? From the time my parents left me, to the time another foster kid raped me, to the time I was bullied so bad, I tried to kill myself with a bottle of pills. So I'm sitting in the van, in the driveway of this next home, preparing to meet Rodney and Christine from Yukon, Oklahoma. He looks in my eyes and says, "Son, you can keep causing problems, you can keep trying to mess up, you can keep pushing us away, you can keep trying to get us to keep you out of here, but you've got to get it through your thick head, son. We don't see you as a problem. We see you as an opportunity." You see, every kid is one caring adult away from being a success story. March 2015, Harvard's National Scientific Council on the Developing Child released this study saying, and I quote, "Every child who winds up doing well has had at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive adult." My friend and mentor, Reggie Joyner from Atlanta, taught me to think about it this way. In this jar are 936 marbles. Each one of these marbles represents a single week from the birth of a kid until that kid turns 18 years old. You know, a 16-year-old? You got 104 marbles remaining. Right here, we are looking at time. In fact, you're looking at all the time or all of the weeks you have left to influence this kid, or this kid before they turn 18 and begin making critical life decisions without your presence. What matters isn't how much time you have left with a particular kid that you care about. What matters is what you do with that time. I mean, consider how many weeks Rodney had left when he bailed me out of jail. 26. I was 6 months away from graduating high school. 26 weeks to get through my They can't. My bitterness, my anger, my distrust of them, get me to finally accept them. You see, it's not about how much time you have left with that kid you're thinking of. What matters is what we do with that time. If every kid truly is one caring adult, one Rodney away from being a success story, then the challenge is this. The difference between a statistic and a success story is you.
My emotions are tender right now because I have worked with students. Right now, these stories are very similar to the story that Josh just shared with you. Sometimes we think they're not part of our district. We don't see them because they're not in our world. They're not in part of our experience. But they are out there, and they need caring adults, and not just one. As Heidi Jo and Catherine presented a book study, it takes more than one, but one is a start, right? So us helping others to be able to be that person to help a student become resilient. Help our coworkers become resilient, and it's about connection. All those people that were noticed tonight by you, that were recognized, not noticed, recognized, what they had in common was that thread of connection with others. And it's a beautiful thing. So this Everyday Strong Resilience book, what we do when we go through the trauma training after this little bit is we recognize, and if you'll go to the next slide, Keith, the United Way has gone through and put things into 4 different categories. So what we do is we do a lot of sharing. We get together in groups and we talk about each of these needs, what they look and sound like, and then we teach each other in our groups what each one of those things are and what they mean. So the physical needs is what it sounds like. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? But it's also things like movement, not just food and sleep, but does this little kid need to move? If you're a kindergartner, sitting crisscross applesauce for 30 minutes is very hard. It's hard for us, but it's really hard for them too. And so noting that you need to do those things. Having breaks with crackers where they say, how does it feel when you taste it? Does it crunch? Is it salty? Is it sweet? Because it brings them back into the present. That actually helps. But things like safety, which is emotional safety. Is it safe to talk? Is it safe to make mistakes? Things like that. Connection, which is what we think it is. And then confidence. Everybody needs to feel confident. And so these things are discussed in groups of 4. And then we move on to the next slide, which is practical applications. So go ahead to the next slide, Keith. And on page 17 through 20, they have 4 emotional mental need categories, right? Things that people might be dealing with. Below them, if you look on like page 17, it has a little paragraph that talks about what that emotional problem is, what it looks and sounds like. And then you'll see the 4 categories of need below and some ideas in each of those categories on what a person can do to help that student. Now, we can't all do all of them. I can't help somebody with physical and with safety and with connection and with confidence, but I can choose one and I can do that, and somebody else can do the other one. And together as a village, we can help these students or our coworkers or our families start to become resilient. Because Heidi Jo, my brain is just empty. Can you remember, Heidi Jo, that equation that you gave yesterday? Can you share that, please?
Basically, the book presents that stress plus nurturing, and we equated it to support, equals resilience, but stress without support and nurturing equals trauma. So that's how we build a child's resilience.
So this year, our focus, thank you so much, Heidi Jo. This year, our focus is this school resilience, helping these kids to achieve that with nurturing. We end the presentation, if you'll move on to the next one, with a challenge to retake your VIA character strengths. Find out your own strengths, and we change. So if you've taken it a couple of years ago, try it again. It may have changed. And so that we can prepare ourselves, know our strengths, and be positive for, drum roll, next slide, please. Next year, we're going to bring this back to the power of 1 cubed with PACEs, which is positive childhood experiences, and the healthy outcomes from those positive experiences, what that looks and sounds like, and the research that's coming out of that. So that is what we're doing this year. That was just a quick overview. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. You good? Yes, Nancy.
So I'm on the hospital board of trustees.
Yes.
And each month we have to take turns doing a presentation. And my turn was last month, so Gary got me a bunch of these, and I took these in. And they loved it, and they were so excited. And so they were going to contact the United Way to get more, and they're going to train all their staff.
Oh,
in
that
this.
makes me so
And I
happy.
gave them your phone number.
That's just fine because I
So-
am excited to talk about
Well,
this if
because I
I can
just
answer
talked
their
about
questions.
What you have been doing and
Yeah.
how it's really influenced so much of us in the district, and they were really excited.
I'm so glad.
Anyway, I'm hoping they contact you because they're gonna keep studying and work with their staff on this.
I'm thrilled. That's what we need. It's a community effort. It really is.
So I just have a question. So you're training, all the teachers are going through this?
All
staff,
employees.
All employees.
Transportation. Jason's been a rock star. He's like, my bus drivers need to know this. My
Yeah.
secretary, every single person
That's
in the
fantastic.
district is being trained on this. That's our goal. Stress plus nurturing equals resilience. Stress minus nurturing equals trauma. Yeah,
I
the
will
book.
add
Yeah, go
to
ahead.
Julie's question. Was it Monday or Tuesday this week? It's been
Monday.
Monday, Jackie presented this to our district office staff. We have a staff meeting once a month with everybody in the building, and we went through this training together. So when she comes out at the end of the year, she has all of the numbers of every department, and it'll say, the district office hopefully had 99% or 100%.
I wish. We've gotten
know.
97 these past 2 years. Pretty solid 97%.
even-
That's huge.
We even had our district maintenance guys in the back, and they came in and participated, quite
did.
well. It's fun to watch those guys. Usually they're out hammering or fixing
Yep.
something, but they came in fixing electricity, but they came in and really, I think they got
They
pretty
did.
involved in it.
They did. It was really exciting because you know what? It's not just about being around students. This is about us as people, right? So it's captivating to most people. So
Well, thank you
you good?
very much.
No problem. Thank
Is
you
there
very much.
anything we as a board can do to support you in your efforts more?
No, just what you're doing now, just caring about students, and caring about the C initiative.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you.
I will. Thank you, Jackie. That's very good. And I think if you watch the news and different news stories, you get to see that there is a mental health crisis in America in general, and probably more so with children, the pandemic, isolation, social media, all those types of things. And the things that we're trying to do, Jackie's help and the principals and the counselors that we've been able to hire with grants and also with general fund money, we are trying our best to help those children who really have some mental health needs. And once again, that fulfills our mission statement of high levels of learning for all students. And if children are having trauma or they're having emotional issues, it's pretty darn hard to come and sit down and, learn 5 times 5 is 25. And so we understand that they need to have a good, solid background. And luckily we get to talk a lot about that one caring adult. And, as I look back in my life, I know I had 1 or 2 incredibly solids, but I had a multitude of people who were caring adults in my life that helped me. And there are kids out there who don't have that. And so we need to be that, that group of people. And, as I saw Sean Moy sitting there and the way it was talked about him, we need our custodians, we need our bus drivers, we need, certainly our teachers, but all those type of people, our food service workers, all of those type of folks are what really helps our kids be successful.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move on to our October 1 enrollment report. Keith, we're anxiously awaiting this. Been talking about it for a while. How close were you in your? Oh.
thought I had this. Do that all right? You got it, I'm sorry. I don't know how to make, maybe I'll do that. Now, oh, that's how I did it. We getting better? Oh, yeah, you did.
I got it right.
Well, I was just thinking for the audience. Well, a couple things. We were hopeful to get to 12,500. So if you kind of look at this green 12,338, that is the number that our October 1 count landed on, was 12,338. Our goal is to get to 12,500, and I'm going to turn that on because, you know, that's what you're supposed to do when you talk. Without being real obvious, I just want you to look at kindergarten numbers. And kindergarten numbers is this very first column here. And if you will look left to right, 831 compared to 947, 981, 909, 949, all the way to seniors, 869. It is by far significantly smaller than any grade we've ever had. Now, I don't know the answer to why we just have this craziness show up like this, but that's a number that we have not seen in our district for a long, long time. I don't know if parents felt like there's another option to do it, if they did it as a community level. You know, like a bunch of parents say, hey, why don't we run our own kindergarten? I don't know. Or if in 2007, there just weren't as many, 17, there was many children born. But the reality is that was, as you can see, 118 below the average of all of our classes. And so if you were to take 118 and put that back up on the 12,338, we get a little closer to where, if they had just been average. Anyway, so that was, I don't have an answer. I just know that we hope they come back as first graders if they're doing some other alternative situation. I might also add, we have this bubble, and it begins in 8th grade. And it's the 1009. Notice it's over 1,000. It's 60 more than our average. 994 is 9th grade. 1,063 is our sophomores. 988 our juniors. So that little group right there is causing portables to be built at our high schools because this little bubble's coming through. Now, after 8th grade, you can see, and maybe specifically, Harris dropped 5, Bear River Middle dropped 49, Young dropped 32. So that group's going to eventually hit Box Elder Middle. It's eventually going to go to the high school. Now, we know there's lots and lots of growth out there. At least buildings are being built. And you can see that North Park was our largest impacted school at elementary level with 64 new students. We did add some special education programs that brought some students. We are in the 2nd year of Spanish DLI, which brought some students. And then we have some growth out in North Park. McKinley, which sees like there's a whole bunch of houses around it, ironically had 1 new student from a year ago. So anyway, I don't know what I think it was interesting to note down here. We have 11 new elementary students from last year, and we have 33 secondary students from last year. So we have 44. We wanted more than that. We obviously hired more teachers than 44, growth, which would be like 2, but you cannot have someone teach K-13 or K-12. So somebody has, anyway, you have different pockets. When you look at it by grade, you can kind of see in this lower left, kindergarten's down 89, 1st grade's down 10, 3rd grade's down 3, 5th grade's down 23. But we have 2nd grade and 4th grade are big bubbles. When you get in again, you'll see the 8 through 11. There's an increase there. Certainly our ninth grade is a little smaller. So we do know that about eighth grade is specifically on this end of the district. People that are at charter schools then jump into the numbers. And so that's why we often will see Box Elder Middle School traditionally in the 1100, 1140, because Promontory from Perry jumps in, not all their kids, but many of them do. And so you'll see an increase in 8th and 9th grade because of that. It's hard to predict how many come in. We estimate around 75, 50 ninth graders and 25 8th graders, just as a general rule. It's kind of been our role. So anyway, I'm glad we're growing. Our shock was, and you know, I have principals and I love them all to death, but they start panicking because on the roll, the numbers say, we're going to be huge. And then the reality is when people, sorry, if I yelled, sorry, Jared. When, I'm not going to be passionate. I'm going to be very quiet. When, sorry. Anyway, I don't know what I was going to say. I got digressed, but I said it in my mind, whatever it was. Good.
Well,
Nancy,
what
I
we
mean,
say is that
Connie.
buildings don't mean that they're students.
No,
And so, you know, the north end of the county is growing a lot.
yeah, it appears to be, right?
Well, the dirt's moving, the houses are coming up, and yet,
Well,
There
and
you go.
I'll give you an example. Discovery had 102 students a couple years ago in one grade, and they're typically 75. Well, there were subdivisions being created. We go to 102, and I'm like, here we go. We're going to go 102, 102, 102. We've got 2 consecutive years in the 70s now. So, and with subdivisions growing, and so it is really hard to estimate. If I knew how many kids were born and were going to stay, I could predict. But I don't know that answer. So we do the best we can. And then we obviously try to support our teachers so that their class sizes stay where they need to be. Sometimes we can't do it with the teachers, so we have to use a para from now and again to give more support. But we try to do the best we can. We try to stay financially settled for a lot of reasons. But as of today, that's where we are. And any questions would be great.
so portables, tell me about portables.
Oh, they're so exciting. Are you talking to teach-in or where we are? Where are they? Yeah.
Everything kind of, so obviously there are some teachers that prefer a portable,
Not many.
but there's a few.
Yeah. there probably
They
is.
do have AC units in.
They do have
portables, so that is
AC
one.
window units, so that's always positive. And they sometimes are away from others. So, but I will say this, right now, we took Foothill and was it Mountain View or just Foothill? Foothill, you didn't have any.
Yeah, we did. We
Yeah.
gave it to Century. too.
Right. So we've got Century was big, but by the way, Century's elementary numbers are down significantly. So I was thinking Century's just going to blossom while we have a down year. Now, if we have another down year and another down year, then we're just going to have to let that bubble ride. So we got to look at North Park. Every time next year, they're going to need another Spanish teacher. So they don't have a classroom. They're going to have to be another portable. So North Park is probably our greatest concern in terms of long-term, because we don't have any classrooms. So we either have to adjust special programs that are in that school or be prepared to keep adding a portable for the next 3 years.
Did we have enough portables though to?
We have, because of Foothill, they had some. They've been distributed. Box Elder High received one. Next year, they'll be the biggest Box Elder will have ever been next year. But after that, we'll start seeing at least it'll settle. Unless all these houses have sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Bear River High is going to get big for one more year, and then they're going to. But anyway, so we have this little bubble, and it's hard to predict what to do with it. It's always scary when the bubble goes through because then you don't need as much staff, and you hope that that is through attrition, retirements, and otherwise. But again, depends on what the teacher is. If it's a math teacher, you got to hire a math teacher, especially at the secondary level. So those will be some decisions we'll have to make, and our principals will do a great job of deciding what their needs are.
My memory's failing me just a titch because I think it was somebody in this room that told me this anecdotal story this week. But in this particular, it was a gentleman that I talked to, and you can own up to it if you remember telling me this story, who's ever in this room that might have told it. But his particular situation, his wife was 24 years old and she had 2 children. And now he has a daughter that is just barely turning 24 and she is, and he ended up with 4 children, excuse me. His daughter is now turning 24 and is about to have her first child. And her plan is to have 2 children. Now, I know that's anecdotally, and I know that's, you know, one situation, but if you looked at that, if everybody that had
4 kids.
4 kids, and then they turned in only having a couple, it's pretty obvious what's happening. And the birth rate in Utah is going down as well as the rest of the nation. Nancy has some interesting numbers to share from the hospital, but I think that is possibly what's happening. It takes so much money to live in today's world that both parents are working and they're just not having as many kids. And even though we have more houses, there's just not as many kids. And you'll remember sitting here 5-6 years ago, and Dr. Pam Perlich from the University of Utah, the Gardner Institute of, I don't know, it's one of the college, I apologize, I can't remember what that is, but U of U, and she predicted that we would have, you know, we would actually lose students starting last year. Now, I think the pandemic and the fact that we started with remote working and the interest rates were so low, I do think that helped stabilize that a little bit, but I do think we're seeing just a little bit of what her staff predicted is our demographics slowly trickling down. And so that's a concern because a small steady growth is really helpful when you start trickling the other way. And so in my mind, sitting here a year from now, looking at that kindergarten number is going to be a real telltale sign of what direction Box Elder School District student population is headed.
Thank you for that. I did have a column I left October 1, 2019, because obviously in 20 it was pretty good. And then 21, we lost several hundreds of students for online options. So I just want to let us know that that's kind of where we were in 19. So we are up 300 students from 3 years ago. So that's positive, right? We got all our kids back. So we've always been steady to Rod always, and I don't know what he told you, Dave, but Rod's always kind of said, hey, I'm going to build my budget on 100 growth. That's kind of what he tries to do, is build it on 100. We were hopeful this year that if we just had average growth with what the senior class that left and an average kindergarten class, that we would see that number grow a little bit. It didn't, but you just never know. So.
Interesting. Well, thank you. Any questions from the board or?
I will tell you later in the agenda, on the consent agenda item, it's the board's responsibility to accept and just approve the homeschool students.
Mm-hmm.
And if you looked on that list, when I came here 6 years ago, there were 300, just a little over 300. Through the pandemic, that number jumped up to 500, and it's now still at that 500. So we did get some back. We felt like last year that decided to homeschool their kids to avoid either getting the virus or having to wear masks. I think it was both, but there is still about 500. And my secretary is Marcy Hatch, and she told me something that was, I thought, very interesting, that this last year, there's been quite a few people that have moved into our county, and they already know what to do, and they've come and put their kids in homeschool before they even check out Box Elder County schools. So it's something that's a little bit of a national movement. I saw something, I don't know if it was 60 Minutes, but something about this couple was going to homeschool their kids because of, you know, the fear of shootings, because of the fear of bullying, because of anxiety in students and all those types of things. And so it is, you know, that the fact that 5 years ago there was like 350 homeschoolers, now there's 500. There's some of our kids right there that we are probably missing out on. And I feel bad. I think there are cases where there's good homeschooling, and I think there are cases where it's not so good. I'll just be kind that way. So thank you.
So I was in a meeting with Pam Perlich last month on the state trust lands, and she was talking about the growth trends and what they're seeing. Immigrant families that are coming in are the ones having 3, 4, and 5 kids, whereas the local population, not so much. So she was gearing us to start moving our trust lands to these ELL programs and some of the things we've seen where some of our numbers are lower. And she was stressing that as we look in our long-term planning, that it's going to be an immigrant. A lot of these kids coming in are going to be immigrant populations that are going to need different kinds of help than we've been doing previously.
I do have one question, or I don't know, just a thought, but are we going to be able to sustain our DLI programs at the level we are right now with the decline? Like if, like North Park's really growing, is that becoming, I guess, just like the cost benefit? Like, is it? Okay.
Because we've been in the program at North Park twice, or 2 years now. We've yet to hit 60 either year. We did get to 50 one of the years. If we don't get to 60, it causes a financial burden on our district because there's 10 to 15 kids that now, instead of having 2 teachers share 30, they're sharing 25. And so now we have another 10 or 15. And what do you do with that? Well, you end up hiring another teacher if the numbers don't divide evenly by 25. And so right now, I probably ought to be quiet. Right now, Chinese dual language is really not thriving. It's not thriving. I think we have to really look at what is it going to do at Golden Spike. We've offered it for 2 years to say, hey, we can get you together. We are not getting even into 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so what's happening is we're having to hire another teacher to offer that. And you do that at 5 grade levels, that's $600,000 that we would typically not spend. And then obviously when you get into 7th and 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, if you can't hire 2 teachers, you have to hire, they're both teaching very small classes, but you can't hire someone from out of country to come for a part-time job. So I do think it's definitely a concern if that truly is something that we want. Now, for the 50 kids, they're loving it. Their parents love it. They would probably be devastated if we ever pulled it. But financially, it is putting a strain because the idea 12 years ago was that this would go to 60. And it did. Garland always filled at 60. Lakeview always fills at 60. 3 Mile Creek is filling now at 60, but now because of that program, Golden Spike is not filling. North Park has yet to fill. Not saying it won't fill, but it's yet to fill. So at some point in time, then you have to probably say, what are our options there?
We'll say that I will say for next month's agenda, Ashley Nelson, our current DLI coordinator, is going to present, and she was going to talk about the question we had last time from, some of the AP scores and things like that. But one of the things, if I can get my colleagues to help me remind her that we need, let's show some of those numbers, and so we look at that directly when Ashley reports next month.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, because I love the program. I think it's great, but I do think we need to look at the cost effectiveness of it, and if we're, just for all those things. So if we can look at those, that would be good. Okay, any other questions? All right, let's go to our monthly financial report.
I wish I was more exciting, but I'm not.
We don't like exciting finance, unless it's a big.
So
we like it steady.
It's pretty vanilla this month. The only thing I would tell you based off of what Keith has presented is we did budget for 214 additional students. We only have 64. That means there's a difference there of 150. So we need to take that into consideration as we go through this year, that there is some money that we do need to make up that we budgeted, that we were anticipating that we'd receive in revenue, that we will not receive in revenue. So we will need to be a little bit more frugal and thoughtful about our decisions as we go through the year in regards to that. But again, our other numbers are looking really good. So any questions? Okay,
Well, thank you.
you're welcome. It was boring. I told you it would be.
Okay, board committee reports. The policy committee I know meets and we talk about those policies, but has any other board committee met last month? The. Oh, yeah, I was on that. I don't remember one month from the next. Oh, don't ask me when the things happen. Yes, the increment plan. Karen, do you want to talk about that? Since obviously I don't remember. I mean, I remember it now that you mentioned it.
We met with a county commissioner and a couple of their, I don't know what they are, the commission consultants. Good word, Dave, thanks. They have a project that they want us to consider. Can you tell them what the project is?
Well,
Anyway,
they were kind of tight-lipped about exactly what it, they
There's a-
kind of told us, but they were kind of tight-lipped about
there's
it.
a
But they did.
project about extending a current business in the county. And they were saying that it would probably be more physical equipment type things. which-
Personal
Personal
property.
which we know from the solar RDAs that we've done, nets the district a little bit more money than if it's people. They were gonna, we had some concerns, some ideas, and they were gonna get back with their people and get back with us. And I think that's where we're waiting. Anything you guys would add?
No, that's a good summary. It was good. It was interesting. It was good for me. I've only been on the increment financing committee for just a short amount of time, and it was good to see some of the back end of that. And they're, it's good to hear other people's perspectives of what, because we're coming from two different ends in some cases. But if we could find, I liked what they said is, we want to help. We want you to help us help you, or something. Like we're trying to do what's best for everybody.
One thing that I thought was very good was that the policy that the board has put in place a couple years ago, it gave us a starting point to talk to and a little bit of negotiating power, I think. So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
I agree.
And the only thing I would add is that the people that came to us is they're trying to support current business that is here, not bringing in new business, but supporting what's already existing in our county.
Thank you. Yeah.
They don't want the employment competition by bringing in new businesses. We're already having a hard time getting enough people to fill the jobs that we have within the county. And so this group that came in is not really looking for bringing in more jobs, just trying to grow the jobs we have.
Yeah. Okay, were there any other committees that met? Okay. Let's go to our policy review. We had several policies. Are there any questions or comments about, let's do first reading? How'd you like it? I heard it was a nice, good, long one.
I'll move we approve the policies on first reading.
So we have a motion by Nancy Kennedy and a second by Wade Hyde to approve the policies on first reading. Can we just say aye, individuals?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, how about second reading?
I'll move we approve the policies on second reading.
Okay.
I second that. Oh, okay.
Okay, we have a motion by Nancy Kennedy and a second by Karen Cronin to approve policies on second reading.
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. Those pass. And thank you for working on those. I know that there's a lot of, sometimes it's just technical details, but you still got to go through them and read them. So I know that's a lot of work. All right, board discussion items. Superintendent, I'm gonna turn time over to you.
Keith, I've got some links up there. If you wouldn't, can you get that first one, please? Let's do the first 1250. I've talked about this before, and I will just say I believe that Dr. Tolman, the superintendent at the time, had the board put this policy in place, and we've talked about this before, but just a remembrance that we do have 1250. It talks about supporting professional learning communities. It talks about the four questions of the what we do, and this is during our collaborative team time, this is what our teachers talk about. What is it we want our students to know? And secondly, how do we find out if they learn or know what we've asked them to? Letter C there is what happens if they don't learn it? And that's where we talk about that RTI, that second tier intervention. And then also, what do we do when they already know it? And so we talk about extending. And that's what a lot, it sounds pretty darn simple, but that's what a lot of this whole professional learning community is all about. You got to have really clear expectations of what you want them to know. You've got to have a good way to find out if they learned it or not. And it's really good if they learn it in a short term, so that, and you gauge that so that you can get a quick turnaround on what they know and correct it if they haven't gone, if they haven't learned it. Because the old style of teaching for 6 weeks and then giving a midterm test, and by then, if they didn't get it, it's pretty hard to go back and figure out what they didn't get. But if you do it on a weekly basis and a daily basis, like Lewis's presentation before the board meeting started in the work session talked about, it's really big. The next slide, Keith, if you would, please. Just that, the PLC link. You're good. And this is a hot link in your board books, but part of the agenda item said the three big ideas, and I this is where I wanted to focus my attention just a little bit for the few minutes I'm talking, is the three big ideas of professional learning community. The first one is ensuring students learn. For years and years and years, and part of my career as a teacher, we talked a lot about teaching, and the teacher doing this and teaching that and teaching. Well, you can teach until you're blue in the face. What is important is if students learn. And so what we talk about in Box Elder School District is, basically having that system in place that we know students learn. And that's one of the big ideas that is so important. The second big idea is building a culture of collaboration where we work together. We work together in teams, whether it's grade level teams or whether it's content level teams. And, you heard Lewis talk today about his leadership team making important decisions. And we know that if we get more people involved in those decisions and taking a leadership role, that there'll be more effective learning going on. And that's what we're all about. And the reason I brought this to the forefront today is that last item. And it's the big idea on focusing on student outcomes. And we feel like we've been working on this professional learning community for quite some time now. And we feel like we've gotten a lot better, but we really, as a belt team, the Box Elder leadership team, Gary, Heidi Jo, and Keith and I, we talked this summer about what can we do to help our school district, our schools, our students, maybe just take the next step and try to help the learning at high levels in our school district. Well, we came up with that last link, and I have a paper at your desk, and it's this big old honking high levels of learning, and you'll see just upticks, and you'll see the arrow going up, and it just what it's all about is we have had the goal now for 5 years to, by 2024, to become a model PLC school district. And what that means is that you have to, just a couple of the most simple things you have to have in place in order to be a model school in the first place. And one of those is to have the things in place that we have. One of those is the time set aside for collaboration. So I want to thank the board that you've given us that hour every Wednesday morning, and that's when our collaborative teams meet. And so we have that in place. And basically the other thing is in your school, you have to show 3 years of increased scores, or we call them upticks. And so as we sat in that meeting, I remember this summer, I don't know if it was June, July, but it was somewhere in that range. I think Heidi Jo had just started, so it was probably July's meeting. And we had quite a discussion on how we can encourage, how we can celebrate, how we can really bring to the forefront this theory of having upticks. And so with that, we built this chart. And as you may or may not remember, we do have 2 current schools who are model PLC schools. One of them is Discovery from about 4 years ago. And the other one is Mountain View, that was named a model school just last year. And surprisingly enough, they were named a model PLC school, with part of that happening during the pandemic. And as you well know, Heidi Joe was the principal of that school, and now that it's been kind of unique because that effort now combined with another school, and so we still celebrate it. One of the things we decided to do to celebrate it was we wanted to get T-shirts, and so both Discovery and Mountain View, did we get both of them? They reapply this year, so we decided to wait for the upticks. But they got Mountain View T-shirts, and I believe this is on the back, right? You actually see the T-shirt with that on the back, and it's basically a way to celebrate upticks and get people to talk about it. So there's one more. Keith went on a trip out to the Western schools, and I feel bad. I haven't been there yet. Melissa, you should look at me with a cross look, because it's just been one of those things. We're going to get out there very soon. We actually talked about if we got out there before Halloween, what we could bring. So just got to check and see if anybody has an anti-sugar thing out there. So what Keith did, if this is the wall, I believe, in Park Valley, and you can see Melissa's back here. I was hopeful she would be here, but it's hard to see. You can probably see that on your screen just a little bit better than you can up there. But as you can see, they have they break their schools out there basically into K3, and then 4, 5, and up, right? And they've shown the growth there. I'm not on that. My vision's not. Just give me a minute to get there. I'm not going to lie. Because to see that or to turn around like that, I can turn around maybe and do that. But you can see that right now, I believe we found out, is it true? We found out that the Western schools would apply together as a model PLC. And so Snowville, Park Valley, and Grouse Creek, it looks to me like they're right there in that range where they're soon to apply to be a model PLC. And Melissa has been out there now for, is this your second, third? You've been? Okay. So we've had her become the principal of those schools. She got her administrative degree, and we just felt like we needed something to pull those schools along a little bit. And Melissa's just done an absolutely wonderful job. She's committed to actually pulling all of the teachers from those 3 schools together once a month. And the other times they actually get together, I think, via Zoom, and they meet and they actually discuss what they're teaching, how they're going to find out if they learned it. And so we're just really excited about the upticks that's going on out at our Western schools and the great job that they're doing. Can you go up to that next one, Keith? Just to show you, this is 3 of the folks. And Melissa, I'm glad you're here, and I know that the rest, I'll repeat it when you say it. I know the 2 on the right, the one on the right, Joylene Ritchie. It's my right. I'm looking that way. So that's, over here is Joylene Ritchie, correct? And then Bradley Kelly, he's the principal, teacher, at Grouse Creek. And then the lady on the left is Valyn Kunzler. And there's a couple more teachers that weren't in this picture. Okay, Samantha Sproul and Christine Winward. They're both teachers. One of them's from Park Valley, and the other one was at Snowville. And so those 5 teachers, along with, and they have a unique situation out in the Western schools. They use their paras really, really exclusively. It sounded much like what Mr. Jackman does in the alternative school. And they use their paras a lot, and I think they involve them in their PL professional learning committees teams. So I just wanted you to know that we're working with each one of our schools. We talk about this in our principal meetings, the upticks, and it's pretty simple. Just increase your scores, become a model PLC. Yes, sir.
School achieves, we'll get the school color, the school logo with this logo, or with this logo. If it's a team, specifically in A school, A grade, Then we have a blue one, which is kind of the blue and white and gray, and they just have their team gets the upticks, but it's not their school color until the whole school is. But an individual team or a group of teachers certainly can achieve this as well. So that's kind of fun. And
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that, because that's, I think that was the idea of Heidi Joe's. What's the difference between bling and slag? Anyway, that is right. But is that what it is? Well, I was a West Sider in Bear Lake, and if you knew any of that, and a whole nother story. But we just talk a lot about celebrating, and so we want to celebrate, I think, probably the most important thing we do, and that is to increase the learning of our students. And, we do all these other things to support that learning, but this is really what it's all about, is having students learn at high levels. So, any questions about what we're trying to do there?
Maybe we could just add, Melissa's team has reached out. As you saw, there's different teams are at different levels there. So we get to honor where every team is at. And she has had that K-3 reading team out there already achieve that. And so we've given them the shirts. Foothill's second grade team from last year had achieved it too. So they've gotten a shirt. And then Golden Spike's going to look at the combination of the two schools' results to kind of honor the work that both teams have done if they've reached it. So we're having some teams come forward and say we're getting our 3 years of upticks, and it's really exciting. So
That's really good to hear. And I like that you're doing it because sometimes it seems so big to get the whole school. And I can't control them. I can't do anything, but do what you can where you are. And that's great that you're celebrating that.
Kind of make sure we let you know when those happen too, and bring them to the board so you know.
And Lewis shared with me last week, they're seeing some good results. They've started their upward path as well.
That's great. And if we can get the kids on board, half of them just don't care enough to do anything. Like if you just take the test and do your best, and you'll be okay. So thank you. That's good information. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. We have school community council and land trust training is on here. There's a link there that we're not going to do that now, right?
Well,
or could we?
Minutes. It's your call.
Oh, is it only 7 minutes? Yeah. I didn't. Okay. What? How?
Well, we're supposed to have board training, Nancy. This would be considered. So I think
okay, so let's watch it.
Watch it, and it could be considered training. Correct?
And then you got to go out and look at the schools.
Yeah.
It's animated, Lewis, so it should get your attention.
Children's Trust section. Want to welcome you to the brand new school year. We also wanted to take a few minutes to important tips so that you can be sure to have a wonderful and successful year. First, we are happy to report the School Land Trust Permanent Fund has $3 billion. This is wonderful news, as it means the schools will continue to receive substantial distributions every year for years to come. This year, we distributed almost $96 million to Utah Public Schools to fund locally based initiatives and programs. Now, we want to review a few important details to ensure to receive your distribution on time and with ease. The first upcoming due date is October 20th. By this date, you should have formed your council and had your first meeting. Be sure to update our website with the names and emails of all of your council members. This allows us to share important information and training opportunities to each council member. Principals should also be sure to sign a principal's assurance form on our website, assuring that the council is formed according to rule and law. Equally important, you should be sure to update your school website with all of the updated information, including the names and contact information of your newly formed council. We will have further videos and trainings on our school website updates coming out over the next couple of months. Over the last few years, we have seen many schools adopting digital procedures for access to council work. This is great news. it often allows for greater flexibility and inclusion. But here are a couple of things to remember. If you are holding elections online, check in with your district or charter board to see what policies and procedures are already in place for holding online elections. And as a principal or director, make sure that the procedures ensure voter privacy, accessibility to your entire school community, and that every parent is able to have a vote. When having meetings online, be sure to include any Zoom or video link on your meeting announcements and agendas so that any interested party may also attend. You may want to check in with your district or charter board to see if there are additional local policies that you will want to keep in mind. Every year, we get questions about how to increase family engagement in community councils. And while every school is different and unique, here are some approaches that are consistently successful. To increase engagement, we would suggest 1, using multiple platforms for sharing news and holding meetings. For example, advertise upcoming meetings on a school Instagram page and parent emails and on physical signs near pickup. Also, try having your meetings both in person and on Zoom, allowing parents with busy schedules and commutes to virtually attend. 2, collaborate. For example, work with your district to advertise and shout out community council and their work at board meetings or in district communication. You may also have local organizations, the Boys and Girls Club, or other engagement groups that you could attend and share information about your council and how other parents can get involved. And 3, parent power. Research consistently shows that parent-to-parent communication is the greatest way to increase involvement. Encourage your current members to bring a friend to the next meeting, or write a personal email to invite others to provide feedback on council work. If you have had particular success in growing your council, please share your tips and techniques with us. Important change to our program is the council member contact form. Previously, schools had to post council member phone numbers or email addresses directly on the school website. This allows the public to contact their elected council representative. That is so important. However, scammers have often used these email addresses to try to trick council members. As a result, the rule was changed to allow districts and schools to create links for people to directly contact council members without putting email addresses on the website. As always, be on the lookout for scam emails. Remind your council members, the principals, and school leaders will never ask them for money or the purchase cards. And if they see any suspicious emails, have them contact the school or district for verification before making any decisions. Also a great time of the year to review the rules of order and procedure. These rules outline the procedures and norms of your council, including election processes, explanations for how to get on the agenda, and how official votes will be taken. These documents are so important for smooth running meetings and making decisions, especially when the unexpected occurs. Finally, we have a lot of resources available to you if you work with councils. Our YouTube page contains many training videos on everything from creating a land trust plan to updating your school website. Be sure to check back often, and we will continue to update these videos throughout the year. Other resources, including rules for procedure templates, are available on our USPE website. Google USPE Land Trust or go to www.schools.utah.gov/school land trust. If you would like additional support or information, whether in person or virtually, the QR code or our bookings page to schedule a training or consultation. And as always, you can contact us anytime. Paula Plants, Director of School Children's Trust Action, Kira Bennett, Compliance Specialist, and myself, Elise Hume, Training Specialist. Thank you so much for your work and effort in this program. We so appreciate the things that you do, and we love to see what you accomplish each year through the School Land Trust Program. All of us.
Okay, I think Heidi, Joe, and Gary, you guys have got a school community council presidency, school community council training coming up, correct? You want to tell us when that is, or do you know off the top of your?
October 19th from 6 to 7 at Garland Elementary and Box Elder High.
So you're gonna do them at the same time and
Same time.
and for each end of the, and every school community council's been invited to come to that, correct?
President and vice president and principal. The 19th.
6 to 7.
Mhm.
Are you feeding
And-
them or what do you?
Refreshments, and at least the president is encouraged or has to come if they haven't been trained in the last 2 years. So they can, my understanding is they can alternate years.
Box Elder High and Garland,
Minimum.
the 19th, 6 to 7.
Mhm.
Okay, you're all welcome to come if you
Yeah.
like.
Well, thank you. And just as we're on this training, I don't know if you guys are getting the emails from the USBA about they have these October challenges or different monthly challenges. That's coming up soon. The NBA, like we're going to need to. So if you haven't been looking at the NBA for where you are, I would encourage you to get on and look at it. A lot of what it's asking you, you're doing. We're already doing it. We're involving, but there are some parts that we want to make sure that we're aware of. And this month's challenge is the school finance, I believe, training, which is on the website. So if that's just one thing you can do this month, that would be great. And that includes superintendent and business administrator, and then all board members. And so we want to continue our. It's more than just a plaque on a wall. It's really we are trying to be the best we can be. We're trying to be good board members and understand our responsibilities and serve our community and our constituents and our school children and everybody the best we can. And so I need to get on it. I've done some of it, but I know that I appreciate everybody looking at that and making some effort to see that. And if you have questions or not quite sure, just let me know and we can work through that. Nancy.
So they gave us in the last Trust Lands meeting, they gave us the statewide data that they compiled when they asked last year's SCCs, all these different questions, and like 52 or 4% said they had had no training, which really kind of stunned us. So we're thinking that principals may be presenting these videos or doing these things, but the SCCs don't think they've been trained. They don't know that's considered as training. So as you're working, I know each of us have some schools we're working with, encourage them to let their people know this is training. Because I think our principals and our SCC presidents are trying, but the board members aren't realizing they've been quote unquote trained. So anyway, pass this along that these things do count.
And the schools that we reviewed for these positive behavior plans are our same schools we're assigned to for the school community
I
council.
haven't
So
heard it change.
So those are the ones, and I'm going to make a note of that to contact my schools and just double check on I'll make a note of that, let
And
them
at the
know this is
October
training.
19th.
And I'll pass on
really
the October 19th
stress
thing.
that they let their people know, because in these different schools that are on this committee, they say, oh yeah, we watch one video a month, we do things, and the ones, there's some really good YouTube videos out there, but their people are coming back saying, yeah, no, nobody trained us, we're fine.
Okay. Good on that? Okay, let's move on to our consent items.
I make a motion that we accept the consent items.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Wade Hyde and a second by Nancy Kennedy to accept the consent items. And I'll say yes.
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 And I will mention that Karen had to leave early. I know her mother, they had some things she talked to me about that, so excuse her. Okay. Do we have to do the LEA specific licenses separate? Consent items, yeah. They've been approved.
There's just times when you have an LEA specific, they can only teach in our district. There's a variety of reasons why we hire them though. I just want to remind you that we have most of our teachers, we hire several. Our number one university is Utah State. Their license are rarely posted to where they have their professional license by this date. So oftentimes that is one of the reasons. Now by next year, they'll be off, but they just can't get it quite turned around from a May graduation and whatever that process looks like from their end. So many of these are because their licenses haven't posted. Then we have others that are coming from out of state. Well, there's a process you have to do to get your license to transfer to Utah. Therefore, that's not done. So we hired 13 people from out of state. So you have LEA specific licenses for them. They work on the process, they get it figured out. Sometimes we have somebody who is just got a bachelor's in something and they want to become a teacher now. Well, we hire them as an LEA specifically. We put a plan in place to help them become a professional licensed teacher someday. And we're trying to be very creative in that way. The endorsement piece is they already have a professional license. What they aren't is necessarily qualified in a one class period that they might be teaching. And so trying to be all to everyone, we sometimes have to have an endorsement so that they can work on it for 3 years. So just to remind them, we talk about it, but just in case someone goes, because we got to post this on our website of how many percentages we have of LEA specific. There could be some parents really frustrated, like, so they're not qualified. Even in Title I schools, if you have an LEA specific license, you have to inform the parent that the teacher is not technically all the way licensed. So that kind of creates anxiousness sometimes, like, what is, so we try to do our best in that regard, but thank you for your approval.
Okay, thank you. Suggestions for future board meetings. I know we talked about the next month is the DLI data. Do we want to talk about the numbers and that as well? Would that be kind of go together, like brings that information? Okay. And then anything else that,
Julie, I
Wade.
was wondering, we were going to set a date for our work session. Maybe you were already going to talk about that. I didn't know.
No, go ahead.
So I just think.
oh
we
yeah,
should.
we do need to
I
set
think
it.
we should set a
Yeah,
date.
so superintendent sent out that email. We're looking at the Wednesdays, the 26th or the 2nd, was that?
What's that?
Did you get a response from everyone?
Yeah, do you have?
I just have 4. I've got
Oh, I thought we were supposed to tell you. in this
here,
meeting.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
But no, you're correct. I just asked Clyde and Brian to tell me, said they weren't going to be here.
Yeah.
But, excuse me, but Clyde and Brian have both said they like the 26th. Karen and Connie said they both like the 2nd. And that's the only, I've got. You,
And I said either one,
Tiffany
yeah.
can do either. Julie can do either.
I can do either.
Well, we've
That's- yeah.
talked about it and, we're bringing 3 folks from Salt Lake and they said they'd come regardless. But we thought 5:30. Yeah, I was thinking, okay, yeah, I was thinking a 5:30 work session, go 5:30 to 7:30, I think
5:30
would
if
be
you're
all we'd
okay
need
with
to
either
do.
one. Okay.
And I'm not sure Karen didn't say what her issue was. She didn't say I can't do it on the,
So she would just
on
have
the, yeah,
Saturday.
on the 2nd. So I don't know how to,
So the
But-
26th, I would be stiffing my ward primary.
Okay.
kids, But I could be
I'm not
there.
gonna lie, the 2nd would probably better because we're trying to get some information too, more information on Mountain View and from Dave's perspective. So a little bit longer would be better, wouldn't it?
Yeah, as far as getting appraisal, so we
Yes.
actually have an appraised value at that meeting, it would be
Second would be a
helpful.
So
little
the
better.
2nd would be better for me if the primary kids don't much care.
And Clyde and Brian didn't flat say they couldn't. I think they just said the
No.
preference.
So why don't we say the 2nd?
And is 5:30 okay, just like
5:30
our
works.
regular work session? And we'll plan on both Zion's coming and VCBO. And yeah, we'll do that. Okay, Dave, help remind me. that he
So
will-
November 2nd,
5:30
5:30,
On the 2nd.
on the 2nd.
okay.
And I'll get you some out.
And
We'll get you something out. And the 2 topics right now would be how to, I guess for lack of a better word, take bids, sell, whatever you want to say, Mountain View.
Mountain View.
And the other one would be
the
growth,
finances,
growth of the school district and how we're going to handle it.
Well,
Financing.
and that's the, like, you start talking like, well, if our numbers go down,
I know.
it starts to get to, I mean, I think we got to consider all those things, but we do have older buildings that need to be replaced. I
Yeah.
don't think that we're looking at not doing, we still have
Yeah.
things, even if we're not growing, but there's definitely building needs. That's a good way to say it.
So I think with those two topics, we can probably do it in a couple of hours and, you
Yeah.
know,
And
depending.
are we going to talk about, because I know that when you sent out that email about the, oh, bless my heart. Oh, the money, and if we're like, are we going to talk about like grade configuration? Like, are we going to leave it 6 to
I've
8?
already started that process and I do have some information back from
Okay.
Cash. I have better connections with Cash.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring some to you from Weber.
So
But
that'll be included in that
yes,
conversation.
that's all part of that.
Okay.
Grade configuration, which building, all that kind of
Okay,
thing.
perfect. Thank you. Okay,
President Taylor, I have a couple
Yes.
things.
go ahead.
So the audit will be reported in the December board meeting. We need to present that to the audit committee before we present it to the board.
Okay.
So we would need to meet at 15 minutes before. I don't know if we're planning on a work session that board meeting in December.
In
Are we?
December.
December, that's when we invite our legislators, and that's usually at 5 o'clock. We try to do 5 to have dinner and make a presentation.
So
So
is there a time?
And be done before.
6:30.
At 6:30?
yeah, we've done
So
that
would you
before.
prefer to have that before 5, or can we squeeze it at 6?
Who's on the committee?
Connie?
Connie Wade, and who's the other one? Is it just you two?
I think,
I don't.
I don't know.
let me
It
look
used-
it up.
Used to be, I know Connie and Wade have been on there for quite some time.
Okay.
Right?
I was on it before, but I think when we
You shuffled around. We'll
we
find out.
shuffled around.
Okay, so it
Would you be
really
okay at
is just
4:30?
basically presenting to the audit committee what they would present to the board, because you guys are the ones responsible for,
Okay.
well, it would be,
I've
instead
got it
of a
right here.
separate meeting for him to drive to Salt Lake for a 10-minute presentation. Well, actually, it's from Provo.
Okay, so audit committee is Connie, Wade, and Clyde.
Okay. Well, he's gonna come to present to the board that day, but whenever you
Well,
guys would
we meet
like.
at 5 for the legislators to have dinner.
So can we do
So
4:45?
Should we say 4:30?
4:30.
I think he can do it pretty quick in
Okay.
15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, let's plan on 4:45, right before. Yeah, just wherever we're gonna have the work session.
Yeah, we'll
right
probably
over
be,
here.
we'll probably be in there for the legislators
Yep.
work session. So we could do it
Do it in the
east.
small room next door.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. That's
That is
December.
December.
So
He could not attend November. He will be out of country.
December 14th, is that
Yep.
the day?
Oh, is it the 14th?
Well, I'm just
I-
looking at that date up there.
Correct.
We'll get that out to you as
Okay.
well.
And I know in that we're gonna invite our
It is.
representatives.
Yeah.
And do you want to bring up what you like
Like-
suggested with the,
I can't remember who it was that, it was at the superintendent meeting, but I thought it'd be nice if we, if we had some representatives from different people to talk about what we've done with our trust land money, what we've done with our TSSA money, what we have done with Ness, and so we could invite Michaela and even her mom, and I think you ought to bring your husband to talk to the legislators about the importance of supporting Ness, the necessarily existent small schools fund. And then I think, Michaela's a perfect example of what can happen with students who, who've been supported with that money. And then talk about, before we've kind of just have an open conversation, but I think it'd be nice to present about 15, 20 minutes of stuff that has happened because of legislative action. Yes. And especially TSSA, trust lands, Ness formula money. And there might be a couple of other items that as we talk more about it, that have really been important. And of course, WPU increase. How important that is. And we'll probably have Keith talk a little bit during that about how important it is to recruit and how hard it is for us to, compete against our neighbors when they do have a little bit more growth sometimes and it gets there. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, and one thing we really need to work on, Matt Gwynn is our representative
Yeah.
for the southern half, and
And
he's been AOL on
Yep,
everything.
I've invited him.
I've called him and tried to respond and do some things, and he's done nothing for us. He's out of Roy. We were so spoiled having both Lee and Joel here, and we've really got to get Matt Gwynn involved because he represents a major portion of our populace, and he's not willing to give us the time of day. very much into public safety,
Mhm.
but education is not his big thing, and we need to work with him.
I'll work on that, see what we can do.
Thank you.
President Taylor, I have
Yes.
one more thing.
Okay.
So I know that initially Box Elder was in talked about the field turf today, and they moved that to next month because of some illness. I just was curious if at that same, I think they're planning on coming in November, if you'd like the company that did the turf at Bear River to report on that, because I think that will be, they're under state contract. They possibly could be the group that would do the Box Elder turf. If there's any questions in regards to that, he said he'd be willing to come and answer any questions and also explain the process that happened at Bear River and how that went and anything like that, that if you guys are interested in.
I think that would be helpful. I'd like to know. I want as much information as possible.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you this, that there has already been some big donors. There's one that I'm not going to say the name, but they claim they'll donate enough money that by policy, we'd have to find some way to probably name the field after them, even though I know the field or the stadium, I'm not sure which has a name already. Gary and I talked about that, but they have enough, they want to donate enough money that they'd be able to have the field named after them. No, it's for a small 20% or 250,000 for a field, something smaller, not a building. A building takes quite a bit more.
Well, I know that they've had me. I'm on, like, my son plays football, and they've had a bit like on these texts, and people are saying we're having meetings. We want it. They're trying to get community donations and getting some
And
positive momentum. So.
What's it called? The Festival of Trees?
Oh yeah, the
Jubilee of Trees.
yeah.
They've had that the last several years, but the lady who runs that, Julie Johnson, has come to our foundation, and she wants to put I think they're having it at the USU Brigham facility, and they want to put all the money towards that, the turf. And so, yeah, so that's Julie Johnson, I believe is her name, and they came to us. That's one of the donors that wants to try to make this happen. And we've had several, and I know Jesse Roberts and Jamie Kent have both been talking to several people. So,
well, I'm glad to see the community involved, because I think that makes a big difference. That's what I was going to say. Yep. Okay. I don't think we have anything for the Board Education Handbook. We've just reviewed that periodically if you need to. I think you all do a fabulous job, and I appreciate your time and energy and thoughtful processes that you all go through. I know that this is something that, I don't know about you, but it's kind of always there. You know, if I go to a school, if I go to a sporting event, if I see a principal in the wherever, I'm aware of what's going on, and I'm grateful for all the things that are happening, and I want to be informed and know what's happening, and I know you all do as well. And so thank you for your time and your concern and your special insights and expertise, because I kind of feel like I'm just coming on the edge here. Like I know a little, but I know, like, some of you have really spent a lot of time with legislators or with Wade with his USBA and what he's done and his experience with school, and Connie with her community, and I know Tiffany's been great in the community. So anyhow, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate it. And so with that, anybody want to go home? Motion to adjourn by Nancy Kennedy. A second by Tiffany. And I guess we're all just going to say, yes. Okay, thanks. Michaela, thank you for being here. I didn't ask you any questions. Do you have anything you want?
We'll get you a lot more involved, especially when you talk to the legislators.